Alright, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be hopefully converting this laptop screen into a monitor. Basically, that's the long and the short of it. So when I was doing repairs for a business, I had a lot of laptops come through. Sometimes they had stuff built on them, or hard drives didn't work anymore or whatever, so people decided they were going to just toss them and replace them. So some of them I was able to get repaired, some of them I wasn't. This one, I don't recall the story with this particular one, but with a lot of these laptops I just pulled the screens out just to see if I could reuse them at some stage down the future, and the future is today. So I'll show you the process of what I went through to get the part that I've got here that hopefully works. I also bought a little case for it to go into, because I've got another one and it all just sits loose and it's a bit messy. So I've got my laptop sitting over here as well to test it with, and I've also got a power supply that I need to actually make it work. So for anyone interested in doing this with a dead laptop of their own, basically you need to pull the screen apart. So obviously you need to pull it off the laptop first. I've already done that bit and disposed of the rest of the laptop. So I'll see if the plastic's going to cooperate for me, because I kind of want to keep this as the screen, this whole thing as the screen. So now I just need a small screwdriver. Just pull these screws out. This one's decided to be difficult. Not quite sure what's happened there. Oh, I've torn the whole thing off. Okay. Just grab the pliers and undo that one. There we go. Okay, so when you get your laptop screen out, be careful not to touch the bits you're not supposed to touch. We will have to touch one of these bits in a minute anyway though. So the details you're after on this particular one, there's a model number here. So there's this sticker that's got like the manufacturing label sticker. So there's a model number on this one. This one happens to be a B173W01. So that was the board that I had to go looking for. So hopefully that just plugs into this slot here, and we can then plug in either this board. Sorry. So this board comes with So the board comes with the VGA and HDMI. It also comes with a little control board, so you can do setup and stuff like that, and power input there. That's purely and simply what this interface does. The little plastic box that I bought for it as well just makes it easier to mount this somewhere. So I'm thinking of probably just putting it on the back of the monitor here somewhere when it becomes a monitor. And then I'll just put a base on the bottom of this part here so that it can sort of sit on a desk, whether I use it in here or in the office or whatever, just as a second monitor, just to give me a little bit of extra space. I can also I've got a couple of Raspberry Pis, so I might even use it for one of those. So now we've got this apart, we actually need to pull the connector off the back of the actual screen. So this is going to be not necessarily the tricky bit, but just the bit you've got to be careful of, because you don't want to do any damage to this. I also need to make sure that when I replace it that I tape it back up. And I've also got the, I think these are the camera and the Wi-Fi cables here as well, I think. or that might be a backlight cable. That might actually be the backlight. Just carefully pull this off. Now I'm just going to see how that comes out of there. It's just a little couple of pullback pins on this one. There we go, that pops straight out. So I think what I might do is I might mount the board into the box. That way I can't damage it any further, or sorry, that way I can't actually damage it. So that just pops in there quite nicely and easily. And it's just a little packet of screws here. So they've obviously catered for quite a lot of other boards as well. The hole only just lines up on one side, but that's okay. Alright. So just rotate this around so that it comes out of the hole a bit easier. Don't know that it's really going to make that much of a difference, but just trying to keep it kind of neat. I could fold it. That's what they do on the inside the TVs and stuff. There we go. So that's what it now looks like at the front. So you just got a power input here, VGA input there, and an HDMI input there. The laptop, as I was looking at it earlier when I was setting up for this, realised that it's only got a VGA, which is shows you how old the laptop that I've got in here is. But it's got Linux on it and it's still going quite happily and strongly. Alright, just have a quick look at this bit. So I just have to find somewhere for this to go. This can probably sit on the front somewhere, depending on what I build. It's literally got a power, then you got your menu, your up, down, and an enter button for controlling the menu items, and I think for a bit of adjustment in some of the things that are on there. Alright, now the most hardest bit, and that's putting this cable into the slot. There we go, and that's gone in quite easily for me for a change, which is nice. So I'm just going to put a bit of tape over this to hold it in place. Alright, now we get to do the important bit and fire it up and see if it works. Alright, so the power supply that I found to run it is working. So now we'll just plug it in and see if I get some power up on the screen. Okay, so it's not very happy about having no signal, which is good, because that means it seems to be looking and reading everything, and it's gone back into standby mode, hence the red light. And I'll go and get a cable now and see if I actually get a signal out of it. I brought an HDMI cable, but thinking that the laptop had a HDMI output, but because it doesn't, I have to go and get another cable. Okay, so one VGA cable, so we'll plug this in now and see if it decides that it's going to work this time around. Alright, there we go. So, first part's done, that bit's working. Just making sure this cable's not too loose or anything. Seems to be okay, so that's good. So I'll put all this back into its proper boxes and then we'll work on the base for it. So I think the other thing I'm going to do is just strip out these cables for the Wi-Fi and the camera, just because I'm not going to use them and they're just going to get in the way when I'm trying to make the rest of it. And there's no laptop for it to actually be connected to anymore, so there's probably little point in actually having them there. So I'm not sure what else is in here. I don't know what that is, I'll have a look at that in a sec. In the meantime, I'll just pull all these other cables out. Come off. There we go. Interesting way of separating the cables they've got there. They just pull out nice and easily. There we go. Right, that's those ones out, and now the camera. There's no point in even having the camera in here because I don't have the connectors to actually make the camera work. And I might be able to maybe look at joining the wires to a proper connector to a different connector later on. Maybe. There we go. It's easy just to get it out for now. Alright, now this thing, I don't know what this is. Whatever it is, I just broke it off whatever it was sitting on. So we'll just pretend that never happened. But either way, I've now got a blank canvas for that to sit on. So I'll just put this back into its slot and then I'll figure out how I'm going to do the cable. So that's going to be the first port of call that I've got to deal with. So I've got holes I've got where, so I make sure I get the screws in the right spot because I think that's what I did wrong last time. So why that other bit was broken. This one's a long screw and I think I've just put it in the wrong spot. I'll put it down here where the hinge is because that's where most of the stress and the weight's going to be. So now I'll have another go with the top ones here. I'm sorry about the reflection on the screen here. That's actually coming from the skylight up above. part done. So I'm wondering if I might need to drill or cut a hole in the back of this so that this can come out the way I kind of need it to. Because otherwise it's going to be sitting very close to the bottom of where it is. Well, it's not too bad. Just kind of hoping to be able to push it up a little bit. Alright, I'm just going to pull this box apart and see if I can pull that connector off in there and see if I can just cut a hole through the back of the screen here and have it go out that way. Only because I don't want to pull the connector off the actual monitor again. Alright, so that's the two connectors out. So I've got a multi-tool, so I'll probably just use that to cut this hole in behind here, I think, and then we'll see how that goes. So I'll just pull it apart again. Just going to mark where this cut needs to be. Probably not going to end up being the neatest cut in the back of it, but at least it'll be, at least the front will look okay without the cable coming out through the front of it. Grab a piece of support wood. Alright, loud noises. Change this cutter out for a smaller one. Alright, back to loud noises again. Probably go through this side this time. Alright, there we go, it's a bit rough. I'll just clean up these edges a little bit. And then I'll probably end up putting a, once I put the box where it's got to go, I'll just end up putting a piece of tape over that just to cover the hole up a little bit. The good thing is it's not a, I'm not professionally making this for a client or anything, so we'll just carefully feed that through there. Alright, now I'm going to put the screws back in for the screen. Yeah, so while I was looking for a couple of other things, I decided that there's quite a few holes here for screws for the screen, but in the laptop it only had 2, and then the one for the actual cover. So I've decided I'm going to put a couple of extra ones in there just to hold it a little bit better. So I'll do that as I go. Except for that one, because that's the one I broke. And now the top 2. And now I think I can actually put the lid on properly. Lots of clicking as the plastic goes into its little clips. Alright, we'll put the other screws in for the lid. Alright, I've still got the little tabs to hold the that goes over the cover the holes for the screws. Which is nice. Apparently I do, but they don't want to go in. Maybe they're the wrong ones. Alright, so we'll grab the box. Put these 2 cables back in. There's one. And there's the other. Switch cables being do it all again. Get it out of the way. Putting the screws back in the box. And we'll give it another test, make sure I didn't break it along the way. Yeah, good old VGA. Who remembers VGA? Let me know in the comments if you remember good old VGA. SVGA and XVGA. Back in the old days. Apparently it works better when you actually plug it in. Alright, so next I'll stick the box to the back of the screen, and then we'll start building the rest of the bits. So I want it to face down so I can plug the cords in from the, basically from the, so imagine the desk is here, so you can be plugging the cords in that way. I guess I'll go basically as far as I can without putting too much pressure on it. And I'm just going to double-sided tape this to that, and then this controller can go somewhere once I figure that bit out. Now, where did my double-sided tape go? Anybody tell me? Sorry, stop looking. I found it. Alright, last chance for me to figure out where I'm going to put this, and then it's done. Once I stick this down, it's not going anywhere else. Down there. Alright, now just grab the tape and I'll put some tape over the cable in the holes. I'm sure there's probably better ways of doing this, but this is the way I'm doing it. So the other reason why I haven't kind of built the put this box into another box is just because of the where the hinge is. I mean, I probably could, maybe I should have. So that's the first part done. Now I'm just going to figure out where I'm going to put this cable and see if I can build some legs or something for the monitor, for it to actually be a monitor to sit on. It may just be a block of wood, I don't know, we'll have a look. Think about that for a minute and I'll come back. Alright, so what I've decided I'm going to try is, I think I'm going to try and mount this switch bank inside this spot here. So I should be able to mount it in there, even if I just glue it, or I'll just put a couple of screws through and then drill all the holes for the buttons. So I should be able to line it up on that middle one there. I'll follow the same hole in from this one, and that should work. Should, fingers crossed. So then the only thing I've got to figure out on the bracket here for the laptop is when it's on a laptop, it's designed to sort of stop when it gets to about where it is now on that angle. So then I've just got to space it off a little bit because I've got this base to clear and I've got the back of the actual screen part here to clear. So it's really tight. on that, so I might just need, it might just be a slight spacer or a washer or something, and then I'm going to mount it probably just to a piece of wood, which will probably give me not a great amount of height, but I don't think that I need that much height, just because it's going to be too, not that it's going to be too challenging, but I think it'll look too messy if I try and, because the only other way I think I'd want to do it is I could put a leg here, I guess, but I don't have anything that way inclined. Now I'm thinking about it, I might be able to find something. So then I was just going to basically space it off a piece of wood and have it as a very long, like a very big foot rather than a couple of little ones. But I might have a think about whether I can find a couple of little feet just to space it up and give it some height off the bench, off the desk rather. So I'll have to think about that for a moment again. But yes, I'll definitely pull this out and see if I can put that into this fascia part here of the board, of the packeting for the actual screen itself. So after all that work to get all the clips in so they were all nice and actually in, I've now got to pull it all apart again. That's okay. That's part of the fun of doing these. Pulling it apart 15 times isn't always fun, but that's okay. So I'll just pop this lead out, hopefully. Looks like it should come out. There we go. So now I can concentrate on getting this mounted into here. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I think that should work. So I'll just pull this tape back off. Some new tape. And we'll feed that through there. I won't take that down again until I've got it all back together again. That will go somewhere there. So the plan is to line it up directly on the middle, so the middle button will sit where the HP logo is, and so then I can drill a couple of mounting holes there, because I don't think there's anything, there's nothing in here that I could actually like screw it to or bolt it to or anything like that, or glue it to rather, I guess was my point. So I'll just drill some mounting holes here, either side. Yeah, maybe I should put one in the middle as well, and then just drill holes for the buttons to come up. I prefer to bolt it down just because I think it's better than gluing it. One, because it means I can pull it apart again if I need to, but two, if the glue ever wears out or anything like that, not the glue should, but Murphy says, so at least that way if it's screwed in, then it's not going to go anywhere. But of course that now leads me to fun and games of trying to find some nuts and bolts that will hold this, that are not too long, so they don't protrude down into the base down here too far. So I'll go hunting through my box of screws. Alright, so after a bit of a frustrating search where I couldn't find any nuts and bolts that were small enough to do what I want to do, I've decided I'm going to try and use this piece of rubber as a nut, and basically just have it on the back here, so when this goes into here, the screws will just screw straight into the rubber there, and it should be enough just to hold it because it doesn't need to be, you know, it's not like I'm going to be using it every day, so it's only just basically got to sit there and hold it there. So I'll start drilling some holes and see how it goes. Just grab my trusty piece of wood for drilling my holes through. Alright, that's the first hole done. That's 2 down, 1 to go. Not quite sure what I drilled through there. That's the screw holes. So now I've got to do holes for the buttons, and I think I need a slightly bigger drill bit for those ones than what I've got here. Just mainly to make sure they go through, because otherwise if I drill a hole slightly off, which I'm highly likely to do, at least I can still get to the buttons. And I am going to be eyeballing most of this, so wish me luck. All I know is they're slightly forward of the screw holes. So as long as I stick with that, I should be right. So there's a bracing piece, I guess, underneath this main part of it. And that's causing me some grief when I'm trying to do the holes here. So the problem I was having is this bracing, this is a bracing piece, so of course it was moving, which was then pushing all of my holes off kilter. So I'll just try and make those line up a little bit better. So of course none of the holes line up, so I'll just have to make the holes bigger. It's not what I wanted to do, but because that bracing piece sort of broke off its mountings, because it was just basically plastic welded, that's what I've got to now deal with. I think it's slightly thicker than I wanted it to be as well. That's okay. Okay, well, I've made a monumental stuff up here. I've drilled the cable, I've drilled the buttons for it to sit this way around, but it actually sits that way around. So that's a bit of a monumental stuff up. Alright, so what I'm going to do is, this bit is attached to this piece. This is a single piece, and then this is attached. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this piece here out, and that'll get me closer to, so the buttons actually stick out further, and it'll probably just make it a little bit easier to fix up my stuff up as well. So rather than trying to drill through 2 bits of plastic, I'm only drilling through the 1. So I'm going to use a small Dremel for that one. So I'll get into that next. Alright, so for me it's the next day. Obviously for you it's just a blip in the frame. Still smarting a little bit from my stuff up on this yesterday. So, but what I did do this morning was I went to Bunnings and found a couple of brackets. Well, actually these are feet, so they're normally supposed to go up that way, but I'm going to turn them up the other way, and I'm going to mount the screen to this, so that this basically ends up being the foot, and I'll end up putting another piece of wood under here still as like a shelf for it to sit on. So I've just got to drill a few holes in here for bolts through the existing laptop screen hinge there, and one for there's a little locator lug there, so I'll try and measure that one a bit better and properly than I did yesterday on the other thing, and use that. And so what I do is use this board here, just cut that entire section that I stuffed up yesterday with, and just put a whole new board over the top of it. It'll cover up my stuff up on the holes, and actually looking at it now, I might just put a whole piece there. I can also then, what can I do? I can mark the wood with the lettering of the actual buttons as well. So I'm just drawing there what they are. So I might consider doing that, and then I'll so depending on what I do, I'll just have to plastic weld this back together to make sure that it doesn't fall apart. So yeah, I think I'll just cut a small piece out just for the buttons. Thinking as I'm talking. So I'll get into that. Alright, so I just found a couple of smaller bits down in amongst my pile of rubbish. That one's got a bit of a mess on it, so I won't use that one. Whereas this one doesn't look too bad. See, I think I'll just cut this piece out, and then I'll probably have to cut it slightly bigger so then it can fit over the top of the bit there, because I'm going to have to cut all of that section out so that it sort of fits in there a bit better, maybe. I've turned it around the wrong way again, put on you. Alright, so I'll just mark this up and then I'll look at how much further I just need to go out a little bit. That way I've got a mount for the actual wood that I'm cutting out. So I'm just thinking that I was going to cut this out, cut this section here out and make it go further across. So then I'm screwing the piece of wood to this and then screwing the switch bank to the piece of wood. So maybe I'll just include, if I cut out this section here with a Dremel, I could just reuse those holes. And I'll probably cut the holes out here big enough, sorry, because I'm going to cut that whole section out, so then the switches will actually sit up a little bit higher as well. So I've already got the holes marked here, if they're actually lined up properly. Well, it's only going to matter for the end ones. So yep, the end ones are okay. Then the rest of it's going to be cut out totally. So that should be okay. So the only thing I've got to do now is just cut this section here out with the Dremel, and then plastic weld basically just along this the cut edge here, just to make sure that it's not going to fall off. As you can see here, when I squeeze this piece here, that whole bit's come off from where I was drilling it yesterday. Alright, so not that I'm worried, but I'm just thinking of trying to do this nicely. I'm just going to cut this back section off here and just see what I'm left with the arrangement for the holes that I've got left, just to see if I can do it a slightly different way or a better way without making wholesale cuts and breaking something, well, not necessarily breaking it, but just cutting it into a bit that I then can't sort of not necessarily recover from, but just making it worse than I've already made it. So we'll do that first. So this might be a good opportunity for me to test out these couple of little things that I got. So I got some little saw blades, just some little cheap ones from AliExpress. So I might give those a crack, see what happens, because the grinder wheel seems to take a little while. It'll get through there eventually, but maybe the one of these might be a bit quicker. So we'll give it a shot, see what happens. Very tiny little teeth on it. Why do they still use flat blades on these screws? I don't understand. Haven't we moved past those in this day and age? New saw blade in place. Let's see how much fun this is. Alright, so after a fair bit of mumbling, I'm back with that bit's now been cut out. So I'm now just going to see how it fits and which way it fits better. So now I've just got to cut a little bit more out, just probably to this clip here, just to allow for the fact that the connector for the cable's got to go in there, because I need a little bit of room for that as well, which means that I'm not quite going to have that plug there for the hole to go through, so I might cut it from the other side as well. So yep, I'll just add those bits to the end. Alright, so that's gone okay. I'm just going to try and elongate the holes that I've got here a little bit more. I couldn't get any worse. Just because the board seems to be sitting there okay. But it's not quite going as flat as I thought it would. I'm just wondering if that's because the switches aren't quite lined up properly or something else. So I'm just going to do some tweaking and twiddling of the edges here and just see if I can get it to sit a bit flatter than it already is. Alright, so what I've done is I've just trimmed, once I've cut this piece off, there was a bit of a lip on this edge here. So basically I've just trimmed that whole lip down, and I've now just got to trim the holes out a little bit bigger, just to give the switches some more room to move in there. I'm considering whether I just go the whole width of the square screw there, sorry, the square switch there, so that it will actually sit fully flush, except for the fact of this connector here. I'm not quite sure yet, but I just need to give the switches a little bit more room to move, because they're touching the edge of the hole where they are. So I'll just elongate those holes a bit more and see where I end up. Alright, so the drill bit I'm going for is, I don't know what size it is actually, 6.5mm, which is still within the square size of that, so these will still sit on the edge of the hole. We'll just see what happens, because I don't have a way to mount these in a jig or anything to be able to drill them properly on the drill press. Alright, so that's what I've ended up with. I don't know if you can see that in the video. I will try and tweak it so that at least I can see it. So that means you should be able to see it. You can kind of see it there. At least I can actually get to each of the buttons now. The holes are still horrible. I might just think of a piece of black rubbery stuff to put over the top of them. I've got the rubber that I was going to use, that I still might be using for the to screw it into. I'll think about that as far as how I'm going to do that. I don't quite know yet. That might be a later one. But in the meantime, I think it's time to put the screws in. I think I'll only put 2 in at either ends, rather than risking drilling another hole. And I think for that, rather than using one full piece, I'll just cut this one down and just use a couple of little bits. I don't know if this is going to work yet either, so I'll just have to punch a hole through and see how. Okay, so that's what I've ended up with. I'll just grab something to punch a hole through with, because these screws, while they're sort of self-tapery ones, they're designed to already have a hole in them. I think I'll just use another screw just to push a hole through it, and then it can cut its own way in. Alright, so I've just got these little screws that came with the plastic box for the board to sit into. Not this board, the main board. So I'm just going to use those. Now I don't want to drill a hole, just because I still want the actual screw to actually hold in the rubber, whereas if I use a drill, it'll actually drill some of the material out. That's my thinking anyway. I might be wrong. So that's one with a hole in it now, and I'll just do the other one. Alright, that doesn't feel too bad. Still doesn't look great. Obviously this isn't something I'm going to be using with any regularity at all. I've got one switch that's deciding to be a bit difficult. Okay, that's alright. Well, I'll just fix that hole again. I'll tweak up the edge of these holes so there's not much plastic hanging about, and then I'll plastic weld. I'll just grab the soldering iron and stick that plastic back together, and then we might be right to go back together. Alright, so I've just elongated those holes a little bit more. Hopefully they should be alright now. So what I'm up to now is I've just got the soldering iron out just to do the plastic welding on this bit, just to keep these two bits sort of stuck together, because as you can see they're not being very happy. And that will cause me grief if I don't do something about it. And I'll probably just do the edge bits along here where I cut that out before as well, because obviously there's a couple of plastic weld spots that they've already had previously that I've now removed. So just try and keep everything stuck together. I've just got a bit of a cable tie to melt if I need a bit of extra. Alright, that's stuck together a bit better now. Just got to clean, I'll just trim the clean up the rough bits a little bit, and I've got a little bit hot because the plastic's deformed a little bit in there, but at this point I don't think it matters too much compared to the other mistakes that I've made on this one. Live and learn. Alright, that neatening up has now been done, so I think it's actually time to put the whole thing back together. And that's one screw in. Grab the other one with this little rubbery nut. It's there in. It's not too bad. Now I'll put the cable back in. I wonder if I should put the cable in first. Mainly because I can't see what I'm doing here. Alright, that managed to go in. I think I wanted to. Alright, looks like my screws are too long. I'll just have to cut those off. Or have I got shorter ones? Actually, I think I've got shorter ones. I was using the longer ones originally because the distance was further until I cut all the plastic out. Does that make sense? Interesting, that screw is actually a lot shorter. And the other screw I'll put in is shorter, but not as short. I've got this other one here, we'll try it. I think the shorter they are, the better it's going to be, because it doesn't look like it's going to want to go back together otherwise. There we go. Okay. Still got problems here. What's going on there? Maybe I don't have as much space underneath that switch bank as I thought I would have. Right, might have to find a nut and bolt for that. Not quite sure what's going on here. Okay, so by the look of it, it's the board. The board is hitting the back of this plastic section here because it's just too wide. And there's not much I can do about that. I really want to start cutting more plastic apart. So for now I'll just have to put up with a little bulge in it, which is a bit disappointing, but so I might have to make a separate box for it later and stick it on top. One, because then it'll cover up the lovely mistakes I've made down there, and then two, it'll allow the actual lid to close. Alright, I think everything else is done up, except for those ones. Alright, put the screws back in the edges there, so at least it holds it together. Alright, so screens back together. Now, feet. Alright, so I'm going to use these feet, which are supposed to be this way up. This way, as I said. And so I'll just cut these off. So as I said, I'm just going to put a piece of wood under there. Haven't got a piece of wood organised yet. And it can certainly just sit on these as feet for now. So the plan will be that I can put these onto there. So I'm just looking at this screen at the moment, and this bracket's got a the hinge sits out further than the other one. I don't know if that's correct or not. Doesn't seem like it wants to move in at all, but I think that's the one that's missing screws from underneath, if I remember correctly. So that might be part of the problem with that one. What I want to do is be able to mount this bracket as far in on this foot as I possibly can. That's going to mean just cutting this little tab off. It's a locator tab on the original hinge, so that way I can move it in without that hinge getting in the way or having to drill another hole for the locator tab. Or do I drill a hole for the locator tab? Probably could actually. That'd be better. So it'll be less prone to move. Yeah, right, I'll do that. So what I might do is I'll drill the locator tab hole first, and then I'll do the next hole after. So I want to put these so that the feet are sitting towards the back, so that when it's sitting as a monitor, and it's sitting on an angle sort of back this way, obviously slightly exaggerated, that it doesn't want to tip over. Okay, so I've got a drill bit here. Hopefully it's going to be from what I can quickly measure, it should be the right size to do all 3 holes. If I need to, I've got another one here to make the locator hole bigger if I need it. Okay, well that hole's done. Doesn't look too bad. Actually managed to kind of mostly line it up. Alright, so I'll get on and do the other one now. It'll be a mirror, obviously. Alright, that's both sets of holes drilled. Not very well. One's gone a bit wonky. Seems to be the run of this particular activity. I'll just deburr all the holes now. Alright, holes nicely deburred, both sides. Yeah. Because of course you can see that through there, can't you? No, of course you can't. Both sides have been deburred. Now I've just got to find some nuts and bolts to put it all together with. Wish me luck. Alright, so after about an hour of fruitless searching, because of course all the bolts that I could find were all fine thread that I wanted to use. All the nuts I could find to suit were all coarse thread, so of course I could never find any that matched. So I went to a slightly different nut and bolt, it's just a bit bigger. So off camera I've just elongated the holes on both the brackets and the actual laptop hinge, just to make it easier and quicker. Also the camera turned off, so I don't know what happened there, so I missed a bit of footage as well. So as you can see, I've got the bracket sitting there. I'll just pop that one in, grab the other one. So it's all getting a bit wobbly, so I think I'm just going to lay it down. I was trying to do it so you could actually see what I was doing vertically there. Never mind. Alright, just do the other side now. Alright, well look at that. It seems to actually be standing up on its own 2 feet, 4 feet on its bracket. So I guess I get to test it now to make sure I haven't damaged anything in trying to put it together. As you can see, I've got this plugged into the VGA cable again down the bottom here. This is actually working quite well. So all I've got to do now is get a shelf, either build a shelf or just put a piece of wood down the bottom here as a shelf and put some feet underneath it. I will try and put another couple of nuts and bolts in here. I'll just have to do another hardware store run just to get those and get it to use it for that. Alright, just as a fun little test, I thought I'd look at the camera here and wave to you over there in two places at once. There you go. So, but yes, you can definitely see that it's quite happily working as a dual screen. So high from there and high from there. Alright, well, we made it to the end. Thank you for watching, because I don't know from your perspective, but this one went on for a bit and caused me a little bit of grief, and I'd made some mistakes. But I guess that's all part of learning and figuring stuff out as you go, and hopefully still coming up with the end product that works at the end. So yeah, again, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave a like and a comment and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.